I'm Sam Haynes and I'm the Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. I've recently been appointed and this is the first major offshore race to take place under my Commodoreship. It's the Noakes Sydney to Gold Coast Yacht Race and it's sponsored by Noakes and we thank them for their support. The race is going to be very competitive. We have over 50 boats racing and 13 of those are double-handed. It looks like with the forecast that it's going to be a faster race. There's good southerly coming through, which should make some really good conditions for the racing. And yeah, the best boat obviously is going to enjoy the big Gold Cup presented to them up in the Gold Coast. I was lucky enough to have won that on Celestial in 2014, and this is a race which really is one of the keepers if you ever get to the top. So good luck to everyone, have a great race and enjoy the conditions. Enjoy the Gold Coast when you get there.
Hi, I'm Sean Langman. I'm very pleased to represent Noakes Group as the official sponsor of this year 2024 Sydney to Gold Coast Yacht Race. Conditions are looking favourable this year for an exciting race, of which historically has been my most favourite yacht race. Looking forward to watching the start and looking forward to watching the progress as boats near the Gold Coast.
Good afternoon, welcome to the 38th Sydney Gold Coast race. Sponsored this year by Noakes Group. I'm very grateful for their support. So as you can see, it's a slightly murky Sydney Harbour. We've had a little bit of rain this morning, we had a little bit of lightning and thunder early. Now we've got very light winds, the sky is brightening. We've got 51 yachts here ready for the 384 nautical miles from Sydney to the Gold Coast. My name is Jules Hall, I'm one of your commentators and I'm joined today by Tom Barker. Good day, Tom. Tom is a fellow director at the CYC, previously chair of the sailing committee. Tom has done this race I think a dozen times when we were chatting earlier, so he knows the course very well, a lot of those navigating. Tom, what's this race like?
Yeah, well, thanks very much, Jules, and you know, hello to everyone out there listening in. It's great to have you here watching the live stream. But what a race we've got ahead of us. Although it's pretty light here on the harbour at the moment, fair to say that it's going to be pretty fast and furious. We'll go into a bit more about the weather shortly, but later this afternoon and into the evening, these crews are going to have a fair bit of breeze, we think, out of that southwest, so it should be fast and furious. But what a wonderful race. You know, thank you to Sean Langman and the Noakes Group for all of their support. It's a terrific event here, you know, heading north, so you're always getting a bit warmer, but I think some of the crews are going to be pretty wet and cold. As you said, I've done a few of these races. I'm not exactly sure, maybe about a dozen or so, but you know, it's one of my most favourite races of the calendar. Unfortunately, couldn't compete this year due to some other commitments that I've got at the moment. But Jules, I know you've done the race a few times too, particularly as a double-handed. So, what's your excuse for sitting on the sidelines this year?
Well, Tom, I'm freshly back off an aeroplane and work and family duties have kept me ashore this year. So, yeah, looking forward to getting into the rest of the blue water, but I'm definitely suffering a bit of FOMO sitting on the boat here today, especially with what we've got to look forward to. So that this race, it's July, it's mid-July, it's middle of winter here in Australia. So Sydney's still relatively mild, Gold Coast relatively mild, but the nights always get very chilly on this race. The water temperature's pretty cool. I think we've got about 16 degrees on the beaches at the moment. Fast forward 6 to 10 hours, it's going to start to get fresh and it's going to build. So that breeze is going to be getting up to 30, 35 knots, potentially gusts of 40 knots. And that's big winds when you're out there in the open ocean. So the saving grace is that it's coming from the southwest. So the boats will be going pretty quick. There's a bit of discrepancy between the models, between the westerly and the southwesterly nature, which may seem immaterial, but that's really significant for the different designs of boats. There's boats that will go very fast with that westerly reaching conditions, and there's boats that will be very fast with a little bit of impact on the outcome of this race.
Yeah, absolutely, Jules. People often think that these fast reaching and running races are not as difficult from a tactical perspective, but I think this is actually turning out to be a really tactical race. I know many people often describe that this is a narrow race course, meaning that you get too far offshore and you're out into that strong East Australian current, and there's definitely plenty of that running out there. Particularly north of Seal Rocks and around Port Macquarie type area, which for those who may be joining us from overseas is sort of Seal Rocks is about 100 nautical miles up the coast from Sydney. So I think it's going to be a hard one for the tacticians and the navigators and the skippers. The big thing when I was thinking about this forecast was with the westerly and those reaching conditions in the first sort of 100 miles this afternoon and tonight, how far do you set yourself offshore as the breeze comes into the southwest and you start running rather than reaching? You're going to start to close the coast, and you're not going to have a huge amount of opportunity with the southwesterly breeze to get back off the coast. So I think what plays out this afternoon, how the boats set themselves up on that race course, and if it were me as a tactician or a navigator, I'd be very, very focused on a waypoint about Seal Rocks, as I said, about 100 miles up the coast, because I think where you pass the coast or how far you clear off Seal Rocks is going to have a very material factor on the rest of the race course. So. It should be a lot of fun, and we wish all the crews out there a safe and fast race. As Jules said, there's a good potential of some strong winds, and it's important. We've got a very well prepared fleet here, and it's going to be some fast action. So I think we're almost coming up to the 5 minutes in a little while. We're about a minute away from that 5 minutes, so glad to see that we're going to get away on time, hopefully, here. There was a little bit of talk of maybe a postponement, but it looks like that little bit of westerlies just filtered in. So that's the race course ahead over the next few days. But Jules, what do you think about the here and now? What about the harbour, this westerly? But where would you be starting on this race, on this start line?
Well, I think you'd start where there's some wind is the main thing, and that's not necessarily an easy answer right now. There's if you're down the pin end, you're into the stronger tide, but what seems to be happening is the wind is bending around Bradley's Head, so there is merit in being further up the line towards the committee boat, so you've got a slightly shyer angle, which will give you stronger better apparent wind angles. There we are, there's the 5 minute. So 5 minutes to go to the start of the 38th Sydney Gold Coast race. I think midline's probably my call at the moment, Tom, but we'll have a look. There seems to be a little bit of wind coming potentially across from the north end over there.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of new breeze potentially coming towards us.
Absolutely. And just to orientate people who are watching the live screen, so you can see that the start boat has just moved out of the left-hand side of your screen. The start boat is here off Point Piper, and so that's the eastern end of the line. And as you can see with the drone, that's facing from the start boat up towards the western end of the line. The pin's up there amongst up amongst the fleet up there. So wonderful pictures of beautiful Sydney Harbour and the bridge in the background. But as Jules said, possibly that western end, that top end of the line, is probably going to have a shorter distance, but it's a real balance for the crews here, because if you get too far on that western end, Jules, as you said, there's a real risk of getting stuck under Bradley's Head and the western shore.
Well, what you can't see on the camera at the moment, but you will see when we start looking at the course, is I think positioning yourself for that upper end of the harbour is really important. And looking at the observations up there now, there is very little wind up around the Wedding Cake and the Sow and Pigs area. So being in a good position for that section of the harbour is going to be very important. Yeah. And this harbour exit is an interesting part of the race. We were talking earlier, it's a very short amount of the race in percentage terms, but it's really important to get a good exit from the harbour, especially into that new breeze first. You start accelerating, you'll stretch away from the boats that are a little slower getting out the harbour. So
100%. This particularly with a fast reaching and running race. You know, once you're out and into that breeze, and it's going to only continue to build and build through the afternoon and the evening, but you get a jump on your main competitors, and we've seen the people that the boats that end up winning the race in a day or two's time often are the ones that have exited the harbour the best. So we're getting into the business here. Less than 2.5 minutes. Interesting to see the fleet lining up here. There we go, overhead shot looking from that western pin end back towards the southeast, and that's sort of that's looking back towards Double Bay there, which is great.
So what we can see here on the right-hand side of the screen, we've got a lot of the two-handers. So we've got Min River in there, I can see Mistral, I can see the J99s. Those guys clearly think that end of the line's where they want to be.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. That puts them at the windward end. They don't want to be the smaller boats. They don't want to be under the lee of the bigger sails from the big yachts. Yeah. We've got a lot of the bigger boats down the other end of the line. Here you go. You can see the. Here we go. The 72 footers URM coming across with the code 0 ready to deploy.
And of course URM probably safe to say the race favourite for line honours, being one of the biggest boats, and also the defending champion on IRC. So they're right in the middle of the screen there, just slowing up. They thought they were a bit early for the line, only a minute to go. You know, it's intense. Even though there's not a lot of breeze, I can tell you from personal experience, making sure you keep the boat going fast in this light air is full on for the crews.
Okay, so here we have the boats at the top end of the line, Mistral on port. You'd have thought they're early under normal conditions, but with this little pressure, they're timing it rather nicely. We've got a bunch of boats still, the big boats midline heading along on port, but there's definitely a preference, strong preference for the pin end start here.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we go, the boat end. This is where we're looking from too on the commentary boat, and Smuggler there with the large Fred sponsorship logo, just deploying their code 0. Seb, Bomb and crew always up for a good competition. We wish them luck.
Okay, and there we go. We're out the blocks. Code 0's deployed. We've got a couple of spinnakers just coming out the pin end there. Mistral, fantastic start. Timed that beautifully at the top end. Here we go. Seb Bomb, Smuggler, code 0 up.
Yeah. And as you would expect, URM, you know, poking out a really good time on distance start there by URM. You would expect the big boat to jump out, but the time on distance was very good, and it's probably worth noting just in the middle of the line they've poked out. Interesting to see some of the sail choices there too. Hey Jules, a lot of code 0s, which we'd expect, but a couple of soft luff spinnakers, both symmetrical and asymmetrical.
Yeah, absolutely. And Yeah Baby, who we're just losing on the left of our screen now, she had a good start. Came out very nicely alongside URM. There we go.
Mark and Louis Rickman's Yeah Baby, Volstar Yeah Baby, I believe is the name of the boat. What a shot. What a beautiful day on Sydney Harbour, hey?
So what we can see here is the boats a little further to windward on the right of the screen have got their spinnakers up. They've got slightly more broad angles they can sail at that end of the line. So that makes sense, them having their A sails up for those boats, and the boats down the leeward end of the line, creating more apparent wind using their code zeros.
And I'm just looking, that looks like Pretty Woman in the middle of the shot, if I can see correctly. Pretty Woman, Richard Hudson, of course, a long-time campaigner and supporter of the sport, particularly encouraging a lot of youth into his cruise. So well done there, Richard, for a wonderful start. Probably poked out of that little group really well.
Look at this, Tom. A little bit of breeze coming over this end of the track. This is
yeah,
max breeze for the morning so far. This is lovely.
Yeah, no, it's better than what we thought we might have about 15 or 20 minutes ago, hey, Jules?
Yeah, it most certainly is.
You know, it's a straight line. I don't think we mentioned earlier, but it's a run-out tide or slack water, probably more accurately right now. You know, 1 o'clock or just after 1 o'clock was high tide, so that'll help the boats as they get down the harbour, get pushed out. So we've got a few boats here. I think Saltwater Wine there, R62 I think is the sail number. Tom and Jamie Woods sailing double-handed, father and son combo. And then Denali on your screen at the moment, the TP52, Damien Parks, a really long-time supporter of offshore racing.
There's URM, nicely powered up at the bottom of the screen. Kodo, those distinctive blue stripes on her sail. Here's a nice one at Denali. She looks nicely powered up there.
Yeah.
They're rolling along quite pleasantly.
Yeah. And one of the boats that went with a soft luff sail, I actually don't think that's a bad choice. I think I've had a number of these races where you get down the harbour and having a soft luff sail just gives you a bit more options. If the breeze frees up a little bit, you can run away and, as we discussed in the early comments, don't want to be caught too high on the western side of the harbour.
That's a beautiful shot of URM. Now, if we can get a little shot over here, we can see we can see Pac-Man coming across very nicely. There was actually, I believe, those guys that were at the top of the line. We might have miscalled that off the start. They've positioned themselves very well.
I agree, Jules. It's a great start. They're very experienced crew. Pete Elkington, Scotty Kavanagh, down from Queensland, that boat. And, you know, Scotty, both Peter and Scotty, very experienced sailors. And they'll be pushing the boat hard, I reckon, tonight and tomorrow in that strong breeze. And, you know, 1980s, I think a 1988 Young 11. And it's wonderful to see, you know, a boat, you know, being given a new life, and look at the work that they've done on that. She's absolutely beautiful. And Jules, I reckon she could be in with a chance. Pac-Man, could enjoy that downwind conditions.
So Scott Kavanagh has just been selected, or just been announced, to represent Australia with his partner, with his wife, at the inaugural double-handed World Championships over in Lorient on the west coast of France. So that's you got some hot talent on board Pac-Man there.
Just looking at here again at the screen, so going from the bottom, URM, then Whispers right on their tail. They'll be chasing them hard all the way, and then the white spinnaker just to the right of your screen, that's Denali. So those three boats have really made a good and early jump. And, you know, URM and Whispers, David Griffiths, of course, the owner-skipper of Whispers, a fellow board member of ours, Jules, at the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, and a long-time campaigner. I know they had a bit of bad luck last year with some damage to the boat, so it's wonderful to see David Griffith back and his team racing this year. We wish them best of luck and safe sailing.
This is really interesting, Tom. Like, we've got a 72-foot boat just ahead of a 62-foot boat, and we've got a 52-foot boat, pretty much level pegging with a pair of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is some good racing at the front end of the fleet.
Yeah, 100%. And
there's Denali, the 52. So they're pretty much all in a line.
Yeah.
We've got Urim just out in front, Whisper just behind, and then we've got on the far side Smuggler, who's taken the eastern shore.
Yeah.
She's nicely powered up.
Yeah, you can see quite different approaches as we spoke about. Denali up here more in the middle of the harbour and with a soft sail on, and Smuggler started down that eastern side closer to the boat end and with a code 0 on. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I think Denali, is really well positioned. They need to be careful that they don't get caught too high here, because looking across to the western side of the harbour, it's a bit light air. So some options for Seb Bowman and his crew down there on the eastern shore.
So this is going to be where we see who's made the right sail choice. Is it Seb Bomb with his code 0, or is it Denali, who we had on screen just before?
Yeah, absolutely.
This will tell.
And you can already see, you've got the shot of Smuggler there, and they're moving beautifully. And just coming into shot, Koa, another one of the TP52s. Mark Griffith there, I think, is on the helm. An old sailing friend of mine, and they're in the hunt as well. They're sort of middle of the road. Smuggler to the east and Denali to the west, and Koa. That sounds like a line out of a music song or something like that, Jules. Stuck in the middle with you.
Can you sing us something, Tom?
No, not today. But look at that, Koa. You can see the concentration.
You can, can't you? And Stewie Holdsworth on the main there, fellow laser sailor.
And looking in the background here, over the background from Koa, you'll see just how intense this racing is. Whispers has it's just coming into shot on your left-hand side. Whispers has peeled. They've furled up their code 0 and gone to probably their A1, I dare say, in this light air breeze. So as we said, you can see those boats just starting to edge up a little bit to the west, and I think it's sort of playing out that Smuggler, who's on the eastern shores, probably got a lot more option, as we said. So here we go, Seb in the yellow pants there, black jacket, and Steve McConaughey, that looks like, on the back of the boat. And what a start for them! They'll be very pleased. This boat is very well suited to the light air. Slightly narrower in design than some of the other TP52 designs, so I don't think they'll be upset about a light air start. And if history is anything to go by, when they get that heavy breeze later in the race, they'll be pushing very hard. This crew. So
yes, this is the tricky spot on the harbour, I reckon, here, Tom.
Oh, yeah.
This breeze has really eased off, and the boats are slowing up big time. URM's Kodo is pretty floppy over there. Smugglers are going for a peel. They're about to change from a Kodo to a soft sail. They'll be onto a light an A1 probably. This could be a bit of a restart in here, because these boats that got out are going to be going relatively slower to the boats behind, who still seem to have a bit of breeze.
Yeah. And we'll definitely, I know there's a bit of focus on the leaders at the moment. URM was just on there, but we'll definitely get through the fleet for everyone today. But a very interesting race. We're only 10 minutes in, and quite a few boats are already doing their first sail change. It's setting up, all the crews. They've got to get used to it. I think there's going to be a lot of changes throughout this race. And URM, I think as Jules was mentioning, they've got you can see the spinnaker on URM out there ready to do a change. Smuggler, a really neat change there. How quick was that? In the space of the 2 shots that we had, They did have their code 0 on, now they've got their A1, and some really slick crew work there. The bowman just going to fix something out at the end of the pole there just to make sure that the tack of the spinnaker's free. But look at them, Seb. It's hard from what you can see on that screen, but we'll pan around shortly. But from what we can see from our vantage point just off to the side of Smuggler, they're in a great spot.
Oh, here we go. Look at this, Tom. Whisper has jibed onto starboard.
Yeah,
so
we might be able to get a... here we go. Yeah, you can see the shot there. They've jibed onto starboard. As we said, some real difficulty if you get stuck up on that western shore. So Griffo and his team made the decision to get out a little bit earlier, and I think that's a good choice. You know, further to their right, which you might get a shot shortly, but if you'll see that URM has still continued on port. Here we go, the panning shot will come round, there we go. So we're about the middle of the harbour. We're not yet at Sour Pigs, and you know, it's a tactical battle playing out here. There you go.
Yeah, you can see URM top of the screen there, very light where they've really slowed down. Whisper's coming back across to the eastern shore. Is she going to cross ahead of Smuggler?
Yeah,
we'll see what happens on that. I think at the moment she's possibly crossing behind, which would be very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be tight. Of course, Whisper on starboard jibe, so they have right of way. Means that Smuggler, as they approach, you'll note it a bit later here, but as they approach, Smuggler will have to keep clear. And you can see all the crew huddled together up towards the front of the boat on the leeward side. The reason they're on the leeward side or the low side of the boat is to just add a little bit of heel in this light air, help the boat heel over, get a little bit less wetted surface, so a little bit less drag of the boat in the water, and try and get it going. And as we thought we might have a cross situation, but Smuggler, as you can see there, jibed a bit earlier. So they're both, Smuggler and Whisper, heading towards that eastern shore. That's sort of, they're in the vicinity of Nielsen Park there. You can see the works on the beach in the background of Sydney Harbour. And
here we go, URM. So she's jibed across onto starboard as well. She's still got the code O up.
Yeah.
But she has got a soft sail on deck. They don't look like they're going for a change just yet. They'll need to get it around the other side of the boat if they want to.
I was about to say that.
But something's happening there, Tom. There's people up the front. There's a little bit of movement. We can see those very bright yellow tops. Not going to miss those in a hurry, are you?
No, not at all.
They're,
not at all. Good safety feature.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of the features that I think that'll play out about this year's race. With so much reaching and running, as you can already see, even just in the first 15 minutes, there's different sail combinations, different choices by different boats, and reaching and running up the coast. I think that's going to be critical for all the competitors. You know, the design of their code zeros, the design of maybe some of their other sails is different boat to boat, and there's going to be a lot of sail changes, I expect, and I'm sure the winner's going to be the boat that manages those changes and cuts down the downtime. So some beautiful pictures panning back to some of the smaller boats who will go through, and I think that's a friend of yours in the middle of the shot, Min River, right, Jules?
That is indeed, and Jan Clog-Scholten, who's done a lot of sailing with me, is on there with Shangling, who's the owner of that one. I had both of them on board with me a couple of weeks ago, or probably a bit longer than that, 6 weeks ago, sailing up on the Pittwater, and I can tell you it's interesting when you've got a lot of two-handers trying to sail together. they get in a pickle. But no, it was very good fun.
And there was a shot of the Santa Cruz 72 with the red kite Antipodes, Jeff Hill's boat, and you can see them in this shot. The red kite really stands out. She'll enjoy these reaching and running conditions, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think they're going for a stopover at Chowder Bay, maybe. Hard on port, crossing the fleet. But look at this, there's a bit of breeze up the western end of the harbour here. I think we're definitely in an interesting separation zone where we are, where the leading boats are. You can just see a bit of breeze on the camera shot there up the top end of the screen, and we're seeing that with here on the water with the boats.
Yeah.
A little bit more powered up, the ones that are slightly further away from us. So we'll see if they bring that down or if they sail into this same transition zone that we're in here. 'Cause it's certainly pretty quiet on this middle bit of the course off Neilson Park, just before Watson's Bay. Who have we got here on the screen?
That's a nice close-up shot of Koa with the bright blue spinnaker, and there, as you'll notice from that high shot that we had, the breeze has definitely gone much further left as the boats have come down the harbour. So we started at the start of the race with much more of a westerly direction. Many boats had their reaching code 0 sails on, but with the breeze going left and more into the south as they've gotten onto the main part of the harbour, into some running and a lot of spinnakers. So you can see Koa's made their change from that code 0 that's still in the air and onto their running spinnaker, their A1, that bright blue spinnaker. But yeah.
Lots of jibing going on up ahead of us. Can't see that on the screen at the moment. We're seeing the leader, URM, just starting to pan round now. There we go, swinging back through the fleet. Okay, there's the fleet coming into frame now. So lots of, all these boats, a lot of them are just jibed across from port onto starboard. And they're holding onto that lane of pressure. It's all about staying in the wind when it's like this.
Yeah.
Your tactics are determined by what you've got. There's a very famous saying in racing that you've got to sail the wind you got, not the wind you'd like to have. And so your forecasts are kind of whatever when it's like this. You look at what's on the water and you sail with what you've got. And there's a bunch of boats here that have just got a nice, you see Mistral there. So Mistral got to be a hot contender for the overall win on this race.
Yeah.
He's so Rupert Henry sailing with Greg O'Shea. They have won the last two the Hobart's double-handed division the last 2 years, but they've done a huge number of miles, those two boys, and they're not afraid of pushing hard in the breeze.
And
there's Antipodes again. They're now coming back on starboard, not back into the middle of the harbour. Very distinctive, that red spinnaker with the stars on it.
It is.
Oh, there we go.
And here we are.
Two bigger boats here, Odin.
That's it, Odin and Indigo 2. I think these two boats are going to be pretty close on the water for much of this race, perhaps. Odin being a Beneteau 53, Indigo 2 a Martin 49. And if I'm not mistaken, Indigo is down from Queensland. We welcome the Queenslanders to town. I myself grew up in central Queensland, so really great to see those folks coming down. And Mistral there again, as Jules said, they'll be pushing very hard, and I think they're a really good chance, as you said, Jules.
So Mistral have gone for the symmetric kite. You can see the spinnaker pole there in front of the mast. Not many of those being sailed, but they can be very effective in this light breeze if you've got the right cut on your symmetric spinnaker, and Mistral certainly showing how to do it ahead of significantly bigger boats. That's a 34-foot boat, Mistral, ahead of a 53-foot boat right behind them.
And we might just sort of expand on sort of our logic and thinking why Mistral's in the mix there, Jules. I mean, as we know, this evening, overnight, probably midnight, maybe 1 a.m, 2 a.m, this breeze will come in from the southwest, and it's not going to be a big front. It's not going to hit with a lot of force. It's going to gradually build, we expect, and turn to the southwest. But if the forecasts play out as expected, it's quite possible that the smaller boats in the fleet will actually stay in the stronger wind. Some of the larger boats, even the 52-footers, that are very strong reaching and running, from what I can see in the forecast, I think there's a good chance they might run ahead of the strongest winds. So It's all to play out over the next couple of days, but certainly at this stage I think there's a strong possibility of a small boat race, and you know, which is really wonderful. So now, let's go to these leaders here, Jules. It's changed again. We've got a white sail there on the right hand side, which is Whispers. They've stayed with that A1 sail, URM on the left, and this almost looks like the breeze is coming out of the east-southeast for these boats. So the breeze has been all over the place, and so far the whole way down the harbour these two have been stuck together with elastic band, I reckon, Jules.
Look at this, we've got something setting up. We can see it bowing out on the end of the pole there on your end. Just making some adjustments on the bottom of the code 0. We've got, this is very close between these two boats, and you've got to remember there's a 10-foot difference in length. So Whisper has got to be very happy with how they're going relative to URM at this stage in the game. Just got to not drive into the wedding cake there. Freshly, it's just been freshly painted, the wedding cake.
Oh, there you go.
Don't put any scratches on that one, Griffo. Make sure you miss it. There he goes. Just nicely. It's very gentle. But they have got a bit of pressure. And just the other side of Whisper, just behind their spinnaker, there's a nice little bit of wind on the water there, just dropping off South Head. So I reckon that's what they're aiming for. Just moving across to the eastern side here to get hold of that wind. They'll also get the tide. The tide turns first over on this side, so the tide just starting to ebb, and they'll get a little bit of acceleration from that that tidal change. It will reduce their apparent wind if they're not careful, but it looks like there's a little bit of extra pressure on the water there, which will help them out.
Yeah.
Here we go. You can see both the boats now. You can see us too, Tom, look.
Oh, there we are, on the blue boat.
So there we are, just heading into URM there, heading into Camp Cove. Famous for the first landing point when the first fleet came across. That's where they pulled up on day one before they found the location of the harbour. Look at that shot of the boys on Whisper. Beautiful close-up there of everyone.
There's a lot of looking around, isn't there? It's tricky. It's tricky. There's not a lot of wind. Ian McKillop there. Team, and I think another key player in the crew this year, if I'm not mistaken, Claire Costanzo has joined them as navigator. So
Tom, I reckon we called this a bit early. That wind that was on the waters, totally gone. Yeah. So that's how fickle it is out here. They were sailing across to a lovely little lane of pressure, and it's just gone. So they've slowed right down here, these two boats.
Yeah.
You can see they've still got sail in there, wind in their sail. They're starting to flap a little bit. The boat's gone upright. It gets very difficult when that happens. You can't let the boat stop. You've got to keep rolling along just to keep the flow across the sails. Look at that shot of Watson's Bay. That's, if you want to get your kids into sailing, a couple of great spots up there. Vaucluse 12-footers. A lot of these sailors started their careers there before they progressed to the CYC and joined the Youth Sailing Academy. Tom, you're a graduate of the Youth Sailing Academy?
Yeah, absolutely, Jules. You know, I think when I went through, wonderful opportunities that our Youth Sailing Academy provides, certainly provided a lot of opportunity for me, and I'm very grateful to all the commitment of the club and the members to keeping that going. And there's some exciting plans afoot with a bit of strategic planning going on amongst the board and some of the committees around what you know, the CYCA's offshore academy might look like as a building point from the Youth Academy.
Tom, to have a look at this, you can see firsthand here, URM just teeing up for a jibe. So they've just come off the rail.
Here we go.
Everyone getting in position. This is a fantastic view of what a mini maxi looks like when they're jibing about the live wind. You can see they've furled the code 0. So now they're deploying it. You see that coming out, top left of your screen. So they furl that sail, they turn the boat through the wind, then they redeploy on the new jibe.
And
Look at that aerial shot there.
There we go.
They're going to park the drone on top of the wind bay.
Don't run into it.
Look at that.
But, what a shot. But, you know, even in this light air, you can see the commitment to the coordination of the crew. They stood up on the side and moved across the boat as in one movement, which is really important. And, you know, the crew moving as one. Even on these big boats, having the crew weight in the right spot is pretty imperative. But she's a beautiful boat. I think, as we mentioned, last year's IRC winner, and of course also last year's winner of the Audi Centre Sydney Blue Water Pointscore. So she's out to defend the title. The Johnson brothers and of course Marcus Ashley Jones. That looks like Marcus on the helm there on the leeward side, I think. And he's the skipper and you know, put a lot of effort into this boat and team. This wind's
gone, hasn't it? These guys are pretty much stopped. They're hardly moving now.
Yeah.
That's very frustrating when it's like that. Very difficult.
But it's not uncommon for this race. We've seen a lot of light air starts over the years, and you know, they're really working hard. I mean, I'm actually quite surprised that the lead boats have made their way. You know, URM there is nearing the heads. They've made their way down in pretty reasonable time, but the fleet has certainly spread out.
Well, 25 minutes, 26 minutes from the start, from Point Piper to Camp Cove. That's, as you say, Tom, that's not uncommon for this race, but it's a pretty slow time for a 72-foot boat to do not a very long distance. And just on our left there, we can see Whisper's actually dropped their spinnaker. So you can see that on your screen. Here comes. So what are they going to do now? Are they going to go back to the Kodo?
I think they will. I think they will. I think they've got the Code Zero already there in the air. You know, sometimes in this very light air, the slightly heavier material that the Code Zero sails are made out of, they just seem to hang and hold their shape a little bit better. So I kind of expect that they've made the judgment call that the breeze has gone this light, that the soft luff A1 spinning.
Just go bareheaded, Tom. Maybe that's quicker. Less drag.
That'll be a long way to Southport.
Wow, looks like that's the plan. Now, Griffo, the suspense is killing me.
Do you think they're starting to have a few discussions on board?
I think they're just going to leave it like it is. Maybe it's time for tea.
Oh.
Maybe it's first watch change. Just have a little snack, refuel.
Yeah. Right.
There we go.
Panning back up the harbour.
Look at that mirror.
It's a bit of a mirror. It's going to take a little while for those smaller boats back up the harbour, but they'll make their way out. And as I said, good opportunities across the next few days of racing up the coast. But this is Koa in the middle of your screen at the moment. That blue spinnaker we saw earlier on the coverage, and as you can see, like we were speaking about Whisper, that loose luff or soft luff spinnaker is really kind of hanging there. But looks like they're going to persist with it. There's a little bit of breeze just on the water behind them, I can see.
You just got to find these lanes of breeze, haven't you? And there's a bit of luck in it today. Like you've got to. You can see the breeze, but it's not necessarily where you are, and it's not very easy to get to it if you're not in it.
Yeah.
And that's certainly playing out up here. You can see on the screen, that's a great shot we just had there where we panned out. You can see the really calm spots on the water, and the darker spots are where we've got the breeze. So you can see those little dark spots of breeze and a lot of holes in between, and you don't want to get caught in those holes. It's not quick.
And if we can. We've got a picture here. This boat is Pretty Woman. So the Far 45, I think we spoke about her, poked her nose out sort of middle to top end of the line, and Richard Hudson, his crew, they're a 45-footer, and they are here right next to Denali, and you can see the red spinnaker of Antipodes in the background, and Pretty Woman has had an absolute cracking start, probably the best of the fleet. 45-footer, would rate much lower than the TP52s, and that wealth of experience, Richard and his crew, they are doing a nice job. They're not moving so quick as you can see with the light air, but they are right up with the TP52 fleet, and they'll be very happy with their efforts so far.
Now, if we can just pan out, there's something very interesting happening here. If we can just pan out on the shot there, what is happening? We've got a huge separation. So Pretty Woman and Denali, who Pretty Woman just looking at, are kind of the back end of the first group, and then we've got a huge wind hole, and the rest of the fleet stuck 300 metres up the harbour and not able to progress. There you go. So that red sail, Antipodes, she's the front of the second pack. As we pan round, look at the gap. Look at the gap that's opened up between that first group of 5 or 6 boats and the rest of the fleet. And we talked earlier about the rich getting richer, and we didn't necessarily mean it like this in the harbour, but you can see this group of boats. Clear sky is, there's less wind on the water. So there's a little bit more breeze under the clouds, and there's really very little in these areas of clear blue sky. You can see the glare on the water there. Pretty Woman's now, she's parked up.
Well, what's happening here, I agree with you, that's a really good jump. As I said, about 300 metres from Pretty Woman here back to the next group of boats. But it actually looks like some of these boats in the lead pack, and you can see even Antipodes there dropping their spinnaker, but there might be a little bit of a easterly or even northeasterly filling in here. That can be very variable, and just as we're saying that, you know, the sun's just come out, and it's quite possible that a little bit of thermal effect, what we mean by that is the difference in heat between the water and the land might create a bit of a easterly or northeasterly. Denali attempting to jibe because they're obviously noticing some of the boats over on the eastern shore are making that change from their spinnakers and their code zeros to a headsail, and as we pan across these shots of the leaders, you'll notice that many of them have now gone to a jib. I think that's Koa. That's.
They'll change in 30 minutes.
I think that's even more than that for some of them.
They're going to keep that pace up. They'll be pretty tired by the time they get to Long Reef.
Yeah, and our drone shot capturing Koa, so they've dropped that blue spinnaker and also gone to a headsail. So,
the wind on North Head at the moment has flipped to the east. Now, it is recording a mighty 1 knot. So it's not a material easterly, but it is. It's gone from a westerly to an easterly. So we had a 180-degree shift up on North Head, which these boats have got to go around.
Yeah. And that's exactly what these crews will be doing, Jules. They'll be doing what you do. They'll be on their computers and looking at the observations, and yeah, you can see real difference.
Look at that. You got Whisper on port, 90-degree difference in heading to URM. And to Denali. So Denali's managed to sneak through Whisper. But Whisper... This is still Koa. Yeah. Sorry.
No, all good.
Apologies.
All good, but you're right. Whisper got a little bit caught out, I think, as is so easy to do in these light airs. And Koa's made that change to that jib, as we said. Again, the crew on the leeward side, just trying to heel the boat over a little bit.
And this is interesting because just the other side of Koa, we've got URM really parked up under that. Look at that. Look at URM. Yeah. No wind in those sails. Very difficult for those guys up there. And Koa is potentially, if she keeps going in this little lane of breeze, could get her nose at the front of the fleet, which would be quite an achievement for a 52-footer against these bigger boats.
absolutely. But
Look at that backed jib. Oh, it's very, very difficult. There'll be a lot of tension on board there. Like, it really does test the nerves when you've got these sorts of conditions.
Noakes is pretty good with tension. Tension, hey? It's an interesting point though, Jules, isn't it? That one of the things I love about this sport is, obviously there's a physical element to it, and being out amongst the conditions, and particularly when it's rough, and this race, could see quite strong winds, but also known for its beautiful conditions. Some of the sunsets and sunrises at this time of year it's quite amazing, but we often don't talk a lot about the mental aspect of this sport.
No, I reckon the mental aspect is so important. You've got to maintain, there's a lot of pressure, particularly on these boats that have got good track records. They've won a lot of races. There's expectations they're going to keep performing. When things aren't going your way, it's very easy to let nerves rise, and when people are getting nervy, they don't make the best decisions, and then mistakes happen.
And Jules, maybe we can just expand on that a little bit. I'd be interested in your view. You've done a lot of racing fully crewed, but also obviously in recent years a lot of double-handed racing. Is there anything in particularly different around sort of managing that mental approach, or managing yourself mentally between the fully crewed and double-handed racing?
The principles are the same. The biggest difference is the number of people. Like, the smallest crew boats have got 6 people, and you've got to keep that group dynamic going. When there's just 2 of you, it's a more individual. And the reality is, a lot of the time you're sailing on your own. So when you're doing these offshore races, you're in a watch cycle. We do 2 hours on, 2 hours off. If you're on a race to Hobart, it takes 4.5 days on J99. You have interaction at watch change, but a lot of that time you're on your own. And I think there's different pressures. When you're in bad weather, you got no one to joke with. You just got to deal with it on your own.
Do you ever sit there and tell your own jokes to yourself?
Oh, I've had a go. I find myself quite funny when I need to. Yeah, and I certainly remember the first Hobart we did, 2021, very rough first night, pitch black.
Yes. And
we pushed out into the East Australia current. We had 35 knots. We had, from the south, we had 3 knots of current from the north, and these big steep waves. You just couldn't see them. And I was sitting there that first night about midnight going, what the hell am I doing here? We came through it well.
That was quite a night, wasn't it? I think that was the year I was racing on board Zen, and unfortunately we had a crew injury that evening and headed home early, but it was a pretty horrendous night at sea. But back to the race. Here we go, the drone shot looking towards South Head there, and Lady Bay and URM leading the fleet. As we just spoke about, there was a little bit of a hint of a east or nor'easter, and they've tucked into it, and I can actually see a bit of breeze between them and South Head there, Jules. So
yeah, she's off again.
She's off again. It doesn't take much for these big boats to get going and build their momentum, and all of a sudden she's got
a good jump, Tom.
She's got a little bit of a jump back onto Koa, which will come round, and you'll pick up Koa there, I think, with the black sails in the background.
And there's Whisper.
And
she's got a bit...
Whisper. But encouraging signs that nor'easter might start filtering down the harbour and help some of these boats out.
From the old saying, from hero to zero, I think we can reverse that from zero to hero in this instance. And she's got a nice little bit of pressure here. You can see a bit more under the boom there.
Yeah,
they'll be keeping that. You can see them looking at that. They've seen that line of pressure. They want to get to it.
Yeah.
They'll get to it first. They'll accelerate first.
Yeah. And pretty simple race course. There's a red mark that's just out of the picture to the right hand side, which is a red navigational mark. They keep that to starboard, and then basically keep Australia on your left hand side and finish off Main Beach up on the Gold Coast. And there's always a wonderful welcome from Southport Yacht Club. We really thank them for their support in this event, and and you know, it's terrific to have them as our finishing partner. And these crews will enjoy the hospitality at Southport Yacht Club, probably a few beverages and nice meals, and celebrate the race in style. But
off the transom there. So they're moving, they've got the boom up to windward. Let's get that nice shape in the leach of the mainsail. Fluid still, try and keep that stern out of the water, minimise drag. Look at the sun, look how different that is now from what we were looking at before the race started. It's that different in the cloud and weather conditions that have impacted the wind so significantly.
yeah. And just, Jules, take note, you can see on your screen there the Follow the Live Tracker link. So all the way to the Gold Coast, you'll be able to follow these yachts. They're all got GPS trackers on board, and follow that link. You'll be able to go and see the boat's progress up the course. But the other thing, perhaps, as this ferry goes past, we might swing back on the stern of URM. I wouldn't mind sort of showcasing, particularly for maybe some of the younger viewers out there, all of the same principles apply. If you're out there sailing your junior classes, your whether that's 420s or 29ers or Optis or any of the classes around the country, some really nice trim here. And as you said, Jules, that boom way up above the centre line, to get as much power into that mainsail.
And you know what else we can see, Tom? Do you see on the back there that just above the URM logo there's that white square, and that is a Starlink satellite dish. So this Starlink gives the boats broadband internet access, and that's a materially important bit of kit when you're offshore. But I think this is also important because this is the first race where the fleet has moved from HF radio as the primary form of communication to satellite comms. The communications with race headquarters via satellite, taken off their big HF radios and moved to a new era of communications, and that's going to be the same yacht race on Boxing Day this year. So communications, no HF radio. So if you're overseas, bring your boat down. You don't need an HF radio anymore.
Yeah, it's a big step, and you know, the reliability and most importantly the safety of competitors is utmost important. And you know, there's been a lot of testing, as you and I know, Jules, having worked together on the sailing committee at the CYC and of course the board, and with our wonderful management team working through our club processes and infrastructure, where you know, it's a big step, and you know, hopefully something that competitors will embrace as well. So here's Koa back to the race. So they've also gotten into this northerly breeze, and as you can see, they're on port tack there. And rather than it being east-northeast, looking at that angle that they're sailing in towards South Head, it's probably north or even touch west of north. So again, you've probably heard us say the breeze has come from every point of the compass so far of the afternoon.
I'm just looking at the weather observations now. We've got a northerly at North Head, and we've got a southerly just at the wedding cake. So you can still see a couple of soft sails at the top of your screen there. So this is that transition that everyone's been struggling with.
Absolutely. But yeah, Koa, centre of your picture on the left-hand side, that's Whisper. So those two boats are still battling it out in a very similar piece of water.
Whisper accelerating over there, Tom.
And you'd expect, as the breeze settles, Whisper with a 10 feet length advantage over the TP52s will certainly stretch her legs. No reason for panic for the Whisper crew. it's early in the race, and that experienced group, they'll do well from here. But there's Whisper and Smuggler on the right-hand side of that drone shot, and then this smaller white hull in the distance in the background. Again, Pretty Woman right up there with Smuggler, and as we said, they've had a cracker of a start. They're on the left-hand side, the far 45, Pretty Woman, doing extremely well. And
they've got a very interesting story, Pretty Woman. So Rich Hudson very good at getting a lot of youngsters on board. A lot of youngsters and making sure he's got a good balance of girls and boys, which is very important for the development of the sport. And Richard does an excellent job on creating those pathways for the younger sailors wanting to
through sailing on Richard's boat. They've all to highlight the fact there they tacked onto starboard, and in fact Smuggler had to duck around their stern. So a 45-footer versus a 52-footer, not uncommon in this light air, this very variable conditions that boats of different size battle it out. But the far 45, a very good light wind boat, to be honest. It's of that era of the famous far 40s and the mum 30s, or the far 30s as they're commonly known now, and that narrow waterline, very good light air boats.
And just coming into screen now, look at this. We've got Whisper on starboard coming across to Koa, and this is going to be very interesting. So Whisper on starboard has right of way. Koa's going to be pushing to try and get across her bow. They've got to make that decision quite early today, because your boat won't respond that quickly in this light wind. And it looks like Koa thinks they're going to get across.
Yeah, it's hard to see from this angle, but looking at it live, I agree with you. I think Koa's probably pushing hard, but...
bit of zoom on that lens, so what we can see here, she's got a little bit more. There you go, that shows you the space. It's not a heap of room. They've got to keep rolling, and if they misjudge it and they get caught in the middle, that's a big problem. So it looks like Whisper's also got a bit of a lift, which makes it harder for Koa. So they're holding their nerve on Koa. They think they're going to sneak through.
They're going to sneak across, and tactically, Whisper probably isn't that upset about that. Having a boat tacked right underneath their bow in a lee bow position would be very disturbing to their wind. So they're safely across there. They're across and going, and Koa's obviously doing very well. And again, I believe Koa is a far designed TP52, and again in these conditions, really well suited to the light air.
And that's Whisper's had a tricky ride. They got really stuck off Watson's Bay there, and that's unlucky. Like they saw a breeze, they went in for it, and they'll be frustrated. They don't want Koa in front of them. They'll be working hard to get back the other side of them. That's a lovely shot there. They're moving nicely.
Great shot, and again, taking note of the sail trim. It's a good learning opportunity when you get to sit and watch footage like this, isn't it? But
yeah.
Zooming out here, that's Whisper, the dark hulled boat, and in the background, URM is now tacked onto port tack and sort of pointing out the middle of the heads. And here's the close-up shot again of URM.
And look at this, Tom. We just saw it on the zoomed out shot before. It's getting a little glassy up front for URM again. Well, so we thought we had a bit of breeze, and it's definitely eased off. Look how slow they're going just here.
Yeah.
It's tricky, this race.
Well, of course, and this shot shows it pretty well. With the breeze now coming out of the north, it's got to get up over that big cliff of North Head. So that's really what's causing the light air in the middle of the heads. Is North Head is a very, very high headland, as people might know, and so URM have generally stuck closer to the South Head side.
Well,
we can see the crew there putting a code 0 type sail up into the air. The bowman's working there to feed it up. Gentle movements, even on these big boats, you need to be moving very gently to minimise the disruption. But they're obviously thinking there's an opportunity to perhaps unfurl this code 0 and punch out through the light air of the heads. So
I think you're spot on there, Tom. Stay low, stay in the pressure on the right. There's a little bit more tide on the right as well. The ebb tide just a little stronger on this south head, this stage of the tidal phase, tidal cycle, and so there's no point in being greedy and taking hikes. You just sail into that lee of North Head.
And what'll be interesting here, as we saw, URM has sort of, although they're on the southern side of the heads, they're a bit further out than the boats behind them. Well, on Port Tack, the white-hulled boat. Now, we saw Koa cross ahead of Whisper before, and I don't think Koa's quite making it around South Reef at South Head. But if they do, if they get a little bit of a left-hand shift and they can lift up around South Head there, they might well just poke their nose out and could be in a position to take the lead from URM. So there you go. This shot shows it a little bit. You can see in the top right corner, there's at the top of the screen is South Head. Koa, the white-hulled boat, is trying to sneak around there. And URM here just a little bit further off the headland. Yeah,
they've really stopped again, Tom. Look at this. Almost stationary on URM. Very tricky.
Well, and that just goes to show, we were commenting earlier about how gentle the move. And that type of movement disturbs.
Look at this, Tom. Now, this is a little deceptive, this camera angle, but look what's happening with Koa and Whisper, just a little closer to South Head.
Yeah.
Just sneaking up and potentially sneaking through URM. Like Koa's nicely powered up over there.
Yeah. And
Koa, she would panned out a little bit here, but when you look closely at those sails, she's sailing very nicely. She's got another, only 1 or 2 knots more pressure than the guys on URM, but that makes such a difference. Like if you've got they're in 3 knots and URM's in 1.5 knots.
Yeah,
it's 100%.
They're just moving along. There'll be I reckon they've half a chance to sneak around South Reef there. It's very close, but the sea is very flat. It's a high tide, so there's water up into those rocks. You know, I don't know. I don't think we can call first out the head yet. Mark Griffiths and his crew first out the heads. I promise you, we'll be hearing about it for a long time to come. But there you go. That gives you a good view. Top of screen, URM in the middle of. At the bottom of the screen. Changed so quickly again in this light air. Look at the crew.
They'll be pretty happy on board Koa right now.
Yeah, there we go. That's the crew shot. Look at them, even hiking out to leeward.
Plenty of smiles. Those boys and girls on there.
Yeah, they're already sea boots and a bit of wet weather gear on, so it's going to be a cold evening for them. Brett Philby in the middle there. Some of the from years ago, some of our viewers might remember the tow truck boat, a very famous competitor. Across a couple of different boats. Some of the tow truck crew are there on board Koa this year. And as I said, Mark Griffiths, the skipper for this race, on the helm. There we go.
And you can see that there, can't you, Tom? You've got. I'm going to call it that Koa's just in front at this point in time.
Yeah.
She's. URM's a little further north, so in theory nearer the finish line, but she's just behind. If you drew a line from North Head to South Head.
Yeah.
Koa's pretty much the boat to beat at this point in time.
I reckon, but a long way to go. I mean, it's bragging rights, isn't it? But a long way to go, and
And Whisper here champing at the bit, and Whisper to windward could cause a big problem for Koa.
Yeah, well,
Just
they're
sliding over the top of them.
If it could go either way, couldn't it? As I said, they could roll over the top, but by the same token, even in this light air, Whisper has got Koa on their lee bow, and that could already be disrupting some of their wind. So it doesn't take much in this very light wind for the dirty air of other boats or headlands or other obstacles around to really affect the wind in the sails.
You can see what's happening here. So you can see in this lovely aerial shot, Koa's pushing her bow up to try and do exactly what Tom was saying, lee bow Whisper. Now, what you got to be careful of is you can't be greedy, because what's happening on Koa, she's gone a little close to the wind, she's lost the pressure in the jib, and the danger there is you slow down and stop. And there's just enough swell as you come through the heads here for that to be a problem. But it looks like it's forced Whisper up, who's also going to stop. Then Koa can drop a bow and just accelerate, but you've got to keep the boat moving. You can't 100%. You can't let the boat stop, or you don't get through. Now, this is
and that's actually caused Whisper to tack. So I think there's a few things. I think the angles of the boat, and as you said, Koa pushing up to try and protect themselves. But I think there was probably also a little bit of a right-hand shift in the wind, and you can see Whisper's flopped over onto starboard tack. Koa's actually started to put their bow down a little bit. The jib's starting to fill again. They'll start to move forward a bit more, but very hard, because of course, as you were saying, when you stop like that, of course you lose your steerage as well.
Yeah, you do.
And that makes it really tricky for the skippers.
So URM's back in the game. Look at that shot there. That's lovely. See the breeze in the top of the screen, just on the southern side of North Head.
Yeah.
Whoever gets to that first is going to squirt away nicely. And it's URM is well positioned for that. She's got the code 0 out. She's moving nicely again up there. Whisper going across towards her. It'd be interesting to see when Whisper tacks back. That's a bit of pressure up there on the screen.
There's quite a bit. There is, absolutely. And that pressure is already starting to filter down to where these three boats are, towards the other side of the heads. And, what's interesting about this point of the race too is we've spoken a lot about getting out the heads, but, for the navigators, the sailing masters, the tacticians, now it's a matter of, well, how do we execute on our pre-race plans?
Yeah.
That's probably arguably a little bit different to the forecast. There's a lot of north in here. Generally expecting breeze to be out of the northwest and west. So there's a decision to be made. What do? You've got to assess the grip files and all of the information that's gone into your pre-race planning. But it's a balance then, isn't it, Jules, on what you do with playing the conditions that you're faced with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and when they come out of the heads here, there is the rum line is pretty much a hard left-hand turn, but when we're looking at a lot of the routings earlier, it's pushing the boats not straight onto the rum line, but a little further offshore.
Yeah.
And when we had the weather briefing from Bomb this morning at the club for all the skippers and navigators, they made an interesting point that there might be a little northeasterly pressure on the beaches, which the course is basically northeast, so you don't want to be in that pressure. So when we start seeing, probably in 20 minutes or so, when these three boats get past North Head, we'll see what decisions they're making on their immediate routing. Yeah. Do they get on the rum line, or do they push a little further offshore?
And we'll just elaborate there a little bit on some of the comments we made earlier in the coverage. It's a very tactical race, this. There's going to be stronger wind offshore, as I think you said there, Jules. But then it's also about the angles and the teams that have really researched and gathered the data about the crossovers of the boat's performance under different sail configurations. That's going to be really important for this race, because you don't want to be making changes, say, from maybe a code 0 to another reaching headsail, for example, and then find out that you're actually not heading in the direction you kind of expected, or the performance of the boat's different to your expected. Because I'm very firm of the opinion that with a lot of these races that are seemingly point and shoot, they're going to be on port tack for much of the way up the coast. They've got to be very conscious of sailing too much distance. So do you go offshore, get that stronger wind, and sail more distance, or do you stay a little bit closer to the coast, sail a shorter distance, but maybe you don't have quite a sweeter angle and a little bit less wind? So it's a big balancing act.
Well, it's interesting on these coastal races because this really it's open ocean, but it's coastal racing. It's a long coastal race, 384-mile coastal race, and the weather models don't always get that transition between the land and ocean breezes that accurate.
100%.
And when you take those routings, it's not the GPS in your motor car. It can be very tempting just to follow those verbatim.
Absolutely.
But you've got to overlay human intelligence, human experience, human observation. And the bottom line, generally speaking, the boat that sails the shortest distance gets there first.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a very good reason not to follow your run line.
I just wanted to reassure, we've spent a lot of time with these bigger boats, the 70-footers, the 50-footers, and we mentioned Pretty Woman, the FAR 45 as well, but we will make our way back through the fleet and make sure that we provide lots of coverage of some of the smaller boats. So we've still got a bit of time. We're not running away here, are we, Jules? We've got a bit more time in the coverage to go, so just wanted to reassure.
Look at that line of pressure there, Tom.
Oh, it's that one that you spoke about. It's coming
two boat
down,
lengths.
isn't it?
You see that dark? You can see the dark colour on the water. That's wind. So it's ruffling the water. It's creating a little bit of bumpiness on the water surface, and it makes it look darker. When you see that darker water, that means there's more wind. So they're desperately trying to get to that new line of pressure.
Yeah.
And they're not very far off it now.
No, I think URM's going to really get into that. They've tacked over onto starboard. You can see URM on the far left of the picture, and Whisper here closest to camera. They're just tacking over. Now, there's a bit of a tactical decision to make here as well. Now, Sydney is known for people who might be joining us from overseas or other parts of Australia. Sydney's known for its nor'east sea breezes in the summer. This is a very typical wind direction. We still get them in winter like this, as we can see here, but certainly not as strong. But usually when you're sailing through the heads like this in a nor'easter, there's really big gains to be made when you hit North Head. Now, I don't physically mean hit North Head, but get up right under North Head and you get a good geographical shift. So,
and that could be happening right now, Tom.
Yep.
Whisper here, who you can see closest to us, URM in the background. Whisper is setting up to be first into this new pressure just sneaking around North Head. So if she can do that,
yep.
big gains for her.
Yep.
Versus URM. URM's just flopped over, so she's holding the line. She reckons maybe she's in that new pressure. She looks like she's powering up quite nicely there.
That's right.
She's got some good heel. You see how quickly URM's got that 10-15 degrees of heel?
Absolutely right. Look at her power up there.
Oh, she's getting going there, Tom.
Yeah.
Look at that.
A
little bit of a lift as well. Look at that. You can see the angle she's going on port versus Whisper.
Absolutely.
25-degree difference there.
Absolutely.
And increasing.
But Whisper's not far from that breeze either,
She's
right?
not at all.
So,
she's very close.
And if they get that same left-hand shift, they're going to rotate up inside URM if they get to that breeze quick enough. But you know, you can just see that the differential in boat speed, it changes so quickly.
This is where the mind over matter is so important, because God, it's frustrating when you're on Whisper. You're on that, and you can see that breeze, you can see URM in, and you just want it on your boat.
Yeah.
They're half a boat length away from it now. They're so close, they'll be willing it down on them. Look at that, they're up on the rail now on URM. You can start to see the feet over the side. Look at that.
Goodness me.
On here goes Whisper,
quickly.
here she goes. She's just starting to accelerate. URM's looking good in that shot there, isn't she?
It's been a tactical start, hasn't it, Jules? Like it's always hard in these light westerlies or southerlies, and then with a east northeast filtering through it. But a really tactical start, and it wasn't long ago that Whisper was really caught there, sort of at Watson's Bay type area.
She's off now, Tom. She's just into it.
Yeah,
hooked into that new breeze, the bow's in it, you see Whisper, you'll start to see her power up. Look at that. Accelerating immediately. They're so responsive, these boats.
And I think as we pan, we might just pan to the right a little bit and zoom out. But what you'll also see further down to the south, effectively, will come into picture on the right-hand side. There's a few of the spectator boats, but as we come down here, there you go, there's some grey sails there, and that's Koa. So just to reorientate our viewers, Koa, remember, snuck around South Reef and was doing extremely well. But as soon as this little bit of breeze, the bigger boats, as you would expect, with between 10 and 20 feet extra length, have all of a sudden taken a little bit of a jump. But very well sailed by Koa. Certainly, the lead TP52 at the moment, and they're doing well down there, and they've gotten into that new breeze off more to the southern side of the heads.
So the world has gone back. The world is back in order, Tom. I think the 72-footer will give them first out the heads.
I think so.
I think Koa was looking so good, but she just didn't quite get that new breeze at the right time.
Yeah.
Whisper look at Whisper take off there. You see that bow wave?
Yeah.
That's a cracker.
And Whisper's, lovely shot there at Whisper. What a gorgeous looking boat. And, and again, in the short-term tactics here, there's a decision that tacticians need to make. Do they continue on port tack and just try and push out into the real breeze? Maybe that's a little less affected by the headlands, or do they take potentially a possible gain by flopping on the starboard and trying to get that geographical shift off North Head?
Look at that shot, Tom. Look at the water, the white water off the boat. We haven't seen that all race. Now we've got the boats going. This is where it starts to get fun. Now you can see this is Whisper nearest to us, URM in the background. There's pressure all the way up the track ahead of them. I'd say a bit more on the left than the right.
Yeah.
We're going to have a little look at URM, see how they're going.
It's going to bend left as they get around the heads there, as we know. But
so Whisper on the inside, URM a little further to leeward.
Oh, beautiful shot. Look at Whisper.
Look at them. They'll be happy with that, Tom.
Well done, Griffo.
Yeah, they'll be happy.
He's
on the east coast of Australia. The whale population is in rude health. Enormous numbers of whales travelling up the east coast for breeding up in Harvey Bay. And David Griffith has been very proactive. He's been a leading thinker in how we can ensure that yachts are not interfering with marine life. And he's installed a whale pinger on the front of his keel. And it's particularly important on these big boats that are travelling very, very fast. We don't want yachts hitting whales. It's terrible for the wildlife, and it can be very dangerous for the yachts as well. So Griffo has installed a very interesting piece of technology. It's installed on the leading edge of his keel, the front edge, and it sends little sonic notifications out which alerts the whales to the imminent arrival of the yacht, and it helps them get out of the way. So we're very interested to see how that works. We really think that could be a very positive move to help the yachts coexist with the marine wildlife safely for all parties.
And I think I mentioned earlier that David and his team really deserve a lot of credit for their commitment to the sport. You know, they did suffer some damage, as many people know, last year, and you know, to come back, get the boat in the best shape it's ever been, and be competing, it's wonderful. But here, back to the live shot of URM. You know, they're now starting to poke between the heads, and actually they've climbed up. I can see from our vantage point, it's not quite in the picture there, but climbed up a little bit closer to Whisper's line. There you go, Whisper's in the background, but URM, what a wonderful, that's the drone sitting right off the bowsprit, and the team are working hard. You know, that, as I said earlier, we saw the crew manoeuvres, everyone moving at once, and you know, the other big thing, of course, is what do you do with the watch system, Jules? There'll be a few different schools of thought here, but with the strong reaching and running conditions that these boats are expecting, they're going to be a lot of time on deck, and I wouldn't be surprised that maybe they send some of the crew down and get an early kip.
Yeah, it's a good time for it now. It's
while it's light air, and keep the weight low on the boat. So we'll see. Be interesting to see. They're obviously all on deck for the crew manoeuvres, but And, you know, we're going to start heading back down the harbour. That's the last shot of URM. We're going to start moving back through the fleet, but they're on their way. And what a beautiful shot. You know, that's...
Look at that north
the
head.
Heads in the background.
Very dramatic.
And it's a pretty special part of the world we live in, isn't it, Jules?
It's very good. Tom, I've just been had a little bit of sailing in Italy, which was lovely, but it's good to be back here. This is where it's at.
Yeah.
There's a nice look at the reflection of the water on that hull there of Whisper.
Yeah.
They're powered up. They're heading off out into the Tasman. So we'll wave goodbye to those guys shortly, and we're going to go and see what's happening back in the rest of the fleet. Yeah. So we're assuming coming across here to back to Whisper again.
It's Whisper. That's the
Whisper
drone
going
shot.
around North Head.
And
she's looking. That's a beautiful one. Get one of those. Get a still of that for the wall, Griffo. That's a goodie. And here's Koa. She's powered up nicely here as well.
She is.
Not many feet over the side, but they've got pedal up on the windward side. She'll be very happy with that performance coming out the harbour. She's got a big lead on the other 52s. So this is, once they're into this pressure, it's hard to make those gains back up. So she's given herself a very good advantage coming out the harbour here.
100%. This, as we said earlier on, you know, it's a lighter start, but especially when a forecast like this, you know, these boats will perform very similar to the TP52s. They're relatively similar generations of designs, and you know, the Koa team having that little bit of a jump, it could make a real difference. And you can see the foredeck team just doing a bit of tidy up, and I think they're packing away the Code Zero that they had in the air. It's clear they're going to be on a jib now for a little while until the breeze changes again. You know, they're on the heels of Whisper, and I don't know, they've probably got a small jump on Smuggler being the next TP52 coming onto the picture there. And
big gaps here, Tom. Big gaps between the boats. You look behind Smuggler, you can't see many boats there. It's probably a mile back to the next group of boats, and that's a material difference.
Yeah.
Material lead they've got. So that's how the boats are going to line up, leaving the heads. The changes will be less significant now because they're into steady pressure.
Yeah.
And there they are. And here we're going across to Denali.
Yeah. And so just to confirm that order on the water, you've got URM out in the lead, Whisper in second, Koa in third. Smuggler will be the fourth boat out through the heads, and then sort of to leeward and a beam of Smuggler is Denali. And the interesting shot here, it actually looks like Denali's setting up for a headsail change. You can see the bow crew have got a new headsail. I presume it's a new headsail and they haven't done the change yet. But that's an interesting one, because I would have thought that there you go, the new headsail's going up, and it'll be interesting whether they're going to tack over and do a tack change or what we call an inline change and pull the old headsail down. So it's an interesting situation. I would have thought they'd have a J1 on anyway, but maybe they've got a different sail combination, and obviously deciding that the new jib's going to be better for the conditions they've got here. Just a reminder, you can follow the race on the Yacht Tracker, goldcoast.cycaracing.com/tracker. There we go, the team's even got a nice little shot. So I think that's the live view of the tracker now. It's zoomed in, you can see the boats through the heads. And yeah, it's got a delay on it, so usually the tracker will ping every 10 minutes or so. So not quite showing you the exact live position of the boats, but follow it throughout the race. It'll be it's a great tool. And
here's Antipodes. We're into the next group now. So Antipodes just coming round South Head. I can't quite see who's behind her, but we've got a big cluster of boats. We're going to go and find out what's going on in the middle of the fleet. See what's happening in the... Because the thinking is the overall winner, so the IRC winner, based on the forecast, it's very likely to be a boat in that 30 to 40 foot range.
Yeah.
So URM or Whisper or one of the bigger boats will be line honours winner. They'll be first into the Gold Coast. But the overall winner is very likely to come from somewhere amongst these slightly smaller boats, just because the way the forecast is panning out.
And Jules, just jumping in, we've got a shot here of Antipodes, as you said, but we might switch to a drone shot in a second. You can see the boat in the background, which I think is DAG A2, and I'll chat a bit about them, but some of the viewers might have noticed it looked as though there was actually a crew person up the rig, so up the mast. So they who knows, they might have had a small issue to fix, but it's very likely in these light conditions that perhaps they sent a crew person to the top of the mast to be able to spy and look at the wind conditions. It's a common thing. So there's DAG A2, a beautiful Miley's 50, I think is the way it's pronounced, and I do have to admit I've got some very close friends on this boat, people that I've sailed with for many years, the likes of Sean Kirkjean and Shane Ganaria and Dan Williams are part of the crew, and you know, it's owned by Rob Aldis from Middle Harbour Yacht Club, and you know, it's a beautiful boat that Rob and his team actually purchased over in Europe. I think in the Mediterranean. They did a bit of racing over in the Mediterranean, I understand, and brought the boat back to Australia and are committed to a pretty significant sailing program. So good luck to Rob and his crew. Good luck to my mates there. It's going to be a cold evening, I expect, for you boys, but pretty woman. We've seen and featured in the footage quite a bit today. As we said, they've started very strongly. They're in this same mix. You know, just dropped behind the TPs now, as you would expect, 45 foot, but really well sailed, very well positioned. They're ahead of the Santa Cruz 72 Antipodes and right up there. And it also looks like they might be going for a jib change with the crew on the foredeck. So well done to Richard. It's sort of the the early race leader, I would almost say, on IRC handicap.
So it's pretty glorious out here now, Tom. All that cloud's gone. We've got blue skies. We've got 8 to 10 knots of breeze. We've got flat water. This is about as good as it gets. This part of these conditions.
It's it's rather lovely.
Oh, look at this. Here we've got. Now I don't know if we're going to get this into shot, but we've got Mistral, the first two-hander, just coming round South Head. They are very well positioned. Here she is coming into shot. There we are. So you see the orange stripe at the back there. That's Rupert Henry and Greg O'Shea. They've got a brand new set of sails on that boat. She's nicely bowed down. She's got the stern out the water, no drag. She's powered up, and she's 34 foot, that boat.
Yeah.
And she's here with the 40 footers. Tempo, 44 footer.
Well, and Tempo is a boat we spoke about before we came onto the coverage, wasn't it, Jules?
Yeah, she's
Kernan 44, and you know, very well put together crew and program here. And the boats, I think this boat is also in the mix for honours, as we said, at the size range that might stay in that stronger breeze, and a very good boat downwind. I know they've been working very hard at their downwind configurations in particular, and you know, Tempo, I think, is a boat that is one to watch for IRC honours. I think reaching and running is going to suit her, and Michael Smith. You know, really good team, and I think Matt Pearce, one of the crew who's been instrumental in helping put that program together. They're well positioned, and you know, I bet that crew's looking forward to the reaching and running that's coming. They're going to have some big sails on and pushing that boat hard.
Yeah, she'll be nicely set up for these conditions. There's some lovely footage those guys have got on their so.
I will be absolutely delighted.
Look at that, but now very interesting. So Mistral doesn't live in the water. She's dry sailed. So Rupert keeps her on the hard stand, so she's got no anti-foul on the bottom. I know a lot of the boats in Europe do that. We don't have much space here in Sydney. There's generally large apartment blocks near the waterfront because it's premium land. But there's a couple of yards that have got space. Rupert keeps his boat on the hard stand. I always get a bit jealous of that nice, shiny fiberglass bottom when we're racing them. Greg O'Shea on the helm there. You see Greg. Rupert's gone downstairs. Yeah, they're not using the autopilot, they're hand steering at this point. Look at the bowsprit there. Nice big bowsprit. It's very well prepared.
You know, you look at the attention to detail that Rupert and his team put into every detail in that boat, particularly the rig. I've been, you know, the Beneteau 53 Odin. So I think we spoke about them earlier. Perhaps Matthew Hanning, I believe the owner's name is. Matthew's campaigns does a lot of sailing. This is his beautiful Beneteau 53. It'll be a great race for them. But Matthew also, I believe, is maybe previously or still is in the McConaughey 38 fleet. So you know, put together a good team and probably one of the more comfortable boats. Probably one I wouldn't mind choosing to go and do a race like this when it's. Yeah,
it's good. It's good because when you go off watch, you can have a hot shower before you go to bed. So that's a big advantage.
But don't undersell it. They'll be pushing hard. Don't worry about that, Jules. But now on picture, this boat it's just been renamed. Some of you might recognise the paint job and obviously the sail exchange. So previously owned by Carl Crawford. So this boat, a Cookson 12, is a very boat, and it's great to see the new owner out here racing in the Noakes Sydney Gold Coast. And you know, this size range again could be in the mix. I'm interested to watch, particularly if there's more southwest in the breeze than the west. This boat will have symmetrical spinnakers and a bit more square running. Might be in the mix, to be honest. It's a promising size range, I think, for this race, and they'll have a very good race against the other Cookson 12 known as Calibre. So boat on boat will be very close, and I'm sure we'll find Calibre out here on the
excess moment here, Tom. What can you know so much about these boats, Tom? What can you tell us? The Oracle, Tom, the Oracle Barker. What can you tell us about excess moment?
Excess moment. So an XP44. And a lot of offshore racing, both out of people, out of the harbour, out of Sydney Harbour, and look at them. They'll have a good time. I think that's Chris Zonka in the middle of the boat, who plays a very important role for our racing in Australian sailing and the administration of our rating rules. So thank you to Chris and team. But the XP44, you know, very good IRC boat. There's been a few of them internationally that have got some great results, and you know, maybe not the reaching and running conditions. They're probably looking for a bit more varied conditions and all-round conditions, I would expect. But they're gonna sail the boat very hard. I'm quite sure. Now this is going to be a tricky one with the sun in the background. A lovely shot, but quite hard to pick out who this boat is.
Definitely a sailing boat, Tom.
It's definitely a sailing boat, but Mondo. Yeah,
Lisa. Go Lisa. So another very committed blue water racer. Lisa, the skipper of that boat, runs a very committed campaign. Regular Hobart contenders. They sail the boat well. And it's a lot. This class has been around for 25 years now, the Sydney 38s, and they keep going. I've done I think I've done 4 Hobarts on them. They're seaworthy boats. They're good boats to sail, nice size, and it's great to see that class still thriving after so many years.
I tell you what, Mondo's in a good spot there. They've taken more of a middle line through the heads, and you know, they are clearly the first of the Sydney 38s, and this boat further down towards South Head, this is Minerva. Minerva, owned by Edward Cox. Just double checking that I've got my detail there because we're a little bit of a distance away, but she's a DK43, and Edward Cox, of course, the son of Timothy Cox, and we acknowledge Tim unfortunately passed away not too long ago, and was a pretty imperative part of the CYCA. And a very big volunteer role, and often operating as the race director for our Rolex Sydney Hobart race. So we acknowledged him, and sad that he's no longer with us. But good luck to Edward and his team. DK43 again. I like this sort of size range for this race, but again, the DK probably is a boat that wants a little bit more varied conditions.
Isn't it good to see these boats sailing now, Tom? Very tricky for these guys and girls getting out the harbour, and they're now getting into the breeze. They're rolling on quite nicely, and I have to say I'm very excited about this next little bit of the fleet, because all my 2 we're getting to where they are. And
been raced out of Sydney for quite a number of years. Charles Cooper is the owner. Really nice boats, the Sydney 47s, and this one has some really good pedigree. Has a very successful boat when it was first launched by Graham Wood, I think, the original owner, and really beautiful boat. Calibre here, 7777. So I mentioned Calibre earlier. She's another one of the Cookson 12s, and you know, obviously Kenrecki has just got a little bit of a jump on the water, but not that much, and they'll sail really, really well.
Patriot, you can see Patriot there coming across the screen. J130. Patriots had a very up here from Melbourne, and they've campaigned this boat hard. They're big offshore sailors. They've won division in the Sydney Hobart. I think they've got second in the West Coast, the Wild West Coaster, from Melbourne round to Hobart on the wrong side.
Yeah, no, it's a very well sailed. It's their division. They got the runs on the board and a very experienced crew, as you said. So best of luck to Jason Close and the team.
And there we go. There's my mate Clogsy. Clogsy, he's done so many ocean miles, Cos and I together, and we're not racing the distance. Wet weather gear, ready for action. Must be a bit warm in this sunshine, I reckon, you two. But you never know.
Now Zhang did a.
Yeah.
Was this the boat that she...
It was indeed.
And then she's shipped it out to Australia, is that right?
That's right. So Zhang was over there with us last year. Clogs and I went and did the fast lane. We chartered a boat, a J99. And Zhang had a bit of bad luck. It was a brand new boat. And we were just coming to the Irish Sea. We hit a nasty front as we came through the shipping lanes. And she had a breakage on her autopilot. So they had to bail out about a third of the way through the race. So we waved goodbye to them, so they headed back to France, and we carried on into a very nasty seaway. There's the two of them, focusing hard. Clogsy loves these conditions. Just keeping the boat working. You can see him kneeling up on the side of the boat there, looking around, seeing where the breeze is. And here's another two-hander, Jim Murchison on Avalanche. He's down from the Pittwater, Murch. And he bought this boat up from Melbourne, and he's done a lot of work to configure this. Who I learned this morning tried to land, what do you call it, Tom? Land windsurf across Australia.
My good mate James Francis, Jimmy, he's a mate who I met through the Youth Sailing Academy. We came through at about the same time, and a very good sailor, very good skiff sailor, James Francis, and has done a lot of crazy things. But
and here we've got Rum Rebellion. I'm going to cut you off there, Tom, because this is an important boat. Shane Connolly. J99s. We've got 4 J99s in the double-handed division. Shane giving us a wave. They're already having lunch. Look at those boys. Hey. They're ready. They're relaxed, having a little sandwich.
You reckon he's got a G&T or something tucked away there?
I don't know about that, but Shane's grown a beard for this race to fend off the cold.
Right.
He saw the forecast and he's grown a beard to keep himself warm. So there's a lot of competition with those J99s. He'll be very happy to be the first one of those.
And they're starting to make a bit of good progress out of the heads. It's still pretty variable. The breeze is up and down, but
Tom, we got Sankon here.
Sankon, yeah.
Another well-campaigned Sydney 38. This crew's done a huge amount of miles, and they unfortunately without their owner in this race, who was taken ill a few weeks ago. So it's fabulous that his crew's out campaigning the boat in Kim's absence. So sending all the best for a fast recovery, Kim, and hope your team sails Sankon suitably fast in this race.
Yeah. And some old friends of mine on Sankon, and I'll have to apologise for my French pronunciation. I probably haven't got that right, but
sounds pretty good, Tom.
Some old friends of that I raced with on AFR Midnight Rambler. Chris Rockall there on the helm.
So next one to screen is Yeah Baby. This is this is a crude boat, but it previously was built for short-handed ocean sailing, class 40, one of the early iterations. Pretty bulletproof, that boat. That boat won line honours in the first ever two-handed Sydney Hobart 2021. You look at that. You can go through pretty much anything in that boat. They will be relishing in this forecast.
They will love this forecast. I mean, they won't like this light air right now.
No, this is horrible for them.
But the Rickman twins, owners of Volstead Yeah Baby, they've got a long time crew together. They've been sailing together for many, many years, and I reckon they're some fun. They're going to get up and boogie, and they're going to want as much breeze as this forecast is going to give them, I think. So that's great. And Philosopher, the Sydney 36.
Yeah, that's a storied boat. Not originally, but David Henry most recently owned it. David campaigned the Sydney. He did the Sydney Hobart two-handed, aged 80. So if you think you're feeling old, you've got no excuse. David Henry, Rupert's father, fantastic competitor, and he actually won the two-handed division on that boat last year. Now sailed crude.
And again, boats like that may come into the mix. I can see the possibility of some real square running in this forecast, and a boat like that, a Sydney 36, a very good upwind and downwind boat, and if they get to pull back, some of the boats around them that race asymmetrics could be. Here
we got GWM Pennant Hills, another Beneteau 47.7. They've done very well in these offshore races. Is it the conditions for them? We'll see what happens. Pac-Man, two-handers, we talked about them earlier on. They came off that line very well, and they've got a great big mainsail on that boat, so they'll be hoping to get that working hard. We got Georgia Express. Mum 36. Young owner, a relatively new team. You can see their start. But they've been working very hard, and they're going to be sailing hard this year. Just to the north of them, Saltwater Wine. That's a JPK 1080, owned by father and son out of Newcastle. Very strong contenders. Another colleague of yours from the Youth Sailing Academy, Tom.
That's it.
There we go. Look, Georgia Express there.
Georgia Express.
Very light just here for these people.
Another far design, the Mum 36, and again they could do quite well in the running. They'll enjoy going downwind, but the reaching may may not be their favourite point of sale, but yeah, just on saltwater wine. Very, very talented sailor, Jamie, and it's really, really cool to see father and son combo together, and wish them all the luck for this race. And they've been doing a lot of time on the water. You see their results, and they'll be in the mix, I reckon, with the two-handers. So best of luck.
So the JPKs, Tom, I think it's worth having a little chat about these hull shapes. If we've got this, the reaching conditions, the JPKs have got, if that wind's a little bit more westerly, they'll be going very fast. They'll be better. They'll enjoy that more than the J99s will.
Yeah,
the J99s will like it if it's a little squarer. So I think the conditions in all yacht racing, you've got to design a boat that's optimised for the. So they'll be wanting it out the west. Paul Beath and the rest of the J99s will want it coming. Get their poles, spinnaker poles, the symmetric kites on and the poles back. Here's Clockwork. Now, this is another Sydney 38. These guys have sailed all the way from Adelaide. They brought the boat up to Sydney for the Hobart this year, and there were some fantastic shots of these guys sailing around Tasman Island in that big front that came through, 45 knots, 6-metre breaking seas. Some wonderful shots of them with their orange storm sails up, sailing through some really gnarly conditions. So it didn't deter them. They took the boat back to Adelaide, and they brought it up here. Another J99. This is Blue Planet, and Blue Planet has been optimizations. They've done smart these two now, and that's a big part of it. Getting the miles together with your co-skipper so that you know where each other's strengths and weaknesses are, and where you can perform best.
And, just take a note there as we of that J99. It looks like a very light weather jib that they've got on.
Yeah, I was looking at that, Tom.
I wonder if it's you can see how see-through it is. So very, very small amounts of fibre, we can say, through the panels, or it's a panelled sail, I think, by the looks of it, and maybe specially built for these very light airs, which we 35. Jason, put a lot of work and preparation into this, so Jason will be a very proud moment, I think, for Jason. Big achievement just to get to the start line, right?
And I think Jason is the youngest skipper in the fleet.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So he's spent his career getting everyone else's boats in order, and now he's got his boat, and he's got it very tidy.
Yeah.
It's actually his father's boat that he's persuaded him to let loose on the open oceans. Now we've got something very interesting happening over here. If we can get a shot of this boat, I believe that's Supernova. They've got their drifter. So
Supernova is just out of shot, but this is Ragtime on shot, but we'll come back round to Supernova. But Ragtime, beautiful J boat.
Another J130.
Really has done a lot of sailing, and here's the shot, Jules. Of,
here we go. Look at this. This is
talking about the
she's doing, and they've got a very and they've hoisted it high to get away from that the confusion of where the wind meets the water, and try and get slightly better breeze up there. See how that's working for them. They're just getting going. I think what's happened here, Tom, since the bigger boats came through the heads, the wind has eased off a little bit here, so it's gone a little bit lighter again. So the boats offshore have still got good heel on, and they'll be making good gains on the boats that are coming through here now. Yeah,
I completely agree. It's certainly softer, but the other thing I'd say is that looking at the angles that many boats are sailing through, the breeze has gone to the left, more into the northwest. So what we're seeing is that, remember, the big boats were flopping from port to starboard tack, and whereas some of these boats are getting a chance to sail more straight line. And just to show how variable the conditions are, and the completely opposite end of what I've just said, Jupiter, who is the most southern boat, here on starboard tack, so they're getting a whisper of a southerly breeze. So it's very changeable, this weather here. It's almost at the point I think many of these crews will be welcoming the extra breeze as it comes. 888 is Chow Bella.
You've got a code 0 going out.
Got a code 0 going out.
That's different conditions.
Lovely. I think a roughly 50-foot Hansi boat, and great to have them on board. And similar to what I just said about Juniper, they're on South Head and they're actually on starboard tack, so they're getting a whisper of a southerly or southeaster.
Yeah, there's another convergence zone there, isn't there? It's going to be. That's why it's so tricky to get through. So it's taken these boats an hour and 40 minutes to get to their heads. That's a long time.
That's a long time, yeah. And Making Waves Foundation Kale. So this boat definitely deserves some recognition. Making Waves, of course, the Sailing with Disabilities program, and skippered by a very good friend of mine, John Whitfeld, and Annie Lawrence as navigator. Wonderful program that this Making Waves puts together to give opportunities to people. I think it's roughly half this crew are living with a disability of some form or another, and very famous boat, Lions 54. It's been a long time campaign of CYCA events and other racing around, and I think at one point in time, actually, well, maybe it still does, I believe it at one point owned the Round Australia record. I'll have to go back and check my notes on that, but great to have John, Annie and our whole team heading north this year. Good luck to you guys.
In this shot here, you can see, you can't quite see it, we've got boats on starboard, but 100 metres ahead of them we've got boats on port.
Yeah.
This is, we've got code zeros, we've got jibs.
Be interesting.
There's something interesting going here.
The navigators will be looking at the wind observations
here we go.
up and down the
Look at this shot. This is a good shot. And so now we can see that. This is South Head we're looking down onto. You can see that dark line just off Diamond Bay, up in the top left of your screen. There's a bit of pressure there. You can see the calm zones around South Head. You don't want to be in there. There's a little bit of breeze in the middle, but it's very light. And you can see that boat in the top left of your screen now with the white, might even be a spinnaker, is it, Tom? Might even be an A-sail, we got that.
Just trying to make the picture. Oh no, that big white spinnaker is the Chow Bella that we spoke about earlier, that unfurled there.
And you can see just in front of that white spinnaker, the Kodo, you've got that calm spot, then you can see the darker pressure further out to sea. When they get to that, they'll be off. But that line of pressure's moved a little further offshore. So it's been a bit of a punish for these boats back here.
Yeah, they'll be working hard. It doesn't matter if you're on a big boat or a small boat, everyone's racing extremely hard, pushing hard, and you know, it's wonderful to see the fleet have such a diverse fleet. And you know, a good example, Son of a Sun, FAR 1104. You know, very, very famous boats in the 70s and 80s. A sister ship to Son of the Sun, Piccolo won a Hobart race back in the 70s, I think about 77. And great to have that team down.
Coming into screen now, we've got Inti, sailed by two good friends of mine. We've got and Andrea Davey, who works in the sailing office at the CYC and came and did the the Lion Island series, Pittwater. Young sailor and a very experienced sailor. This is probably I think it's the second or third big offshore race for Andrea. She's just been and done the Round Island race. Wendy did the Round Island race as well on a different boat. And the owner of Inti, Mark, has very kindly given his boat for the two of them. Another two-hander, famous boat here, Cap Wincher, Maritimo as the sponsor. Michael Spees is a very experienced ocean racer, and they've got that boat in absolute mint condition. I was having a look at it on the dock this morning. Yes, on the 1951, I believe this boat was built in 1904. So it's 120 years old. It's pretty much rebuilt this other. But they used to have a program, and Speezy was telling me that they reckon they're going to get in Monday afternoon. So she may be small, she may be old, but she's going to go pretty quickly down that on that downwind and down those waves, and we'll see how that plays out. They're getting a spinnaker ready on the foredeck now. Bit of a change.
We're getting close to the end of our coverage here, Jules, so we might be shortly doing a bit of a recap of the start, but you know, most of the fleet are just about out their heads, as you've seen. It's a beautiful afternoon here, and you know, almost shirts and shorts sailing with this sun that's come and joined us, but as we've alluded to earlier, it's going to be a bit different once that westerly kicks in overnight and then really picks up from the southwest.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. Like these, it looks pretty glorious right now. Fast forward 12 hours and it's going to be windy, it's going to be getting rough pretty quickly. There's going to be talking of 5 to 6 metre waves these boats are going to have to contend with. It's going to be cold, it's going to be some rain as the front comes through. So it's going to be very different to what we're watching now, but it's been a fantastically tricky start for these boats. So they've certainly used some mental energy to get to this point, and they'll be very pleased to be getting into some pressure. Look at the kites out there now.
And so with that, we might do a bit of a review of the start. That's as I said, most of the fleet are out, but we'll be wrapping up in a few minutes, and but we'll do a quick review of the start to wrap up our coverage. But lovely shot there of Sydney, and here we go. This is the start. Look at that shot. A little bit of a sag in the middle of the line there, but pretty accurate. And as we spoke about at the time, a lot of the two-handers up the western end, you know, the bottom of the screen, getting away. And I think we decided that was Pac-Man that was right at the pin, and you can see how the big boats sort of to the middle and bottom end of the line, or the eastern end of the line, started to poke out. And this was a view from that opposite end. URM obviously got away to a good start. The twins, the Rickman twins on Polestar, yeah baby, there with the yellow piece, yellow at the top of their mainsail, with very good time on distance start. Well done to them, and you know, the fleet got away. You know, it's really tricky in that light air to get your time on distance right. So I'm really impressed with the way that fleet were right up on the line and got away. A couple of boats sort of in a second row there, but very good. Well,
all right. Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been, I was going to say it hasn't quite been seat of the edge stuff, but it's certainly been extremely interesting seeing how the boats come out, and it's going to be really good to keep following this race. So get onto the tracker, follow the socials. There's going to be some exciting sailing coming up tonight, and all the best. Sail safe to everyone competing, and we will hopefully see the rest of you back at the club. There'll be plenty of coverage on the big screens. We've got the Olympic coverage. The CYC is an official live site over the next fortnight, so come down to the club, have a meal, have a drink, enjoy the sport, and thank you for joining us today.